How far would you search to find your long-lost brother? Would you break into a super secret organisation with some of the most incredible items that you could possibly imagine? Well, today that's exactly what we're doing and then some, as it is finally time for... With 76 achievements up for grabs, including both of the DLCs, it is time for that peek behind the poster, to experiment with powers we have never had before, grinding some pretty incredible and bizarre challenges and achievements. So without further ado, let us see what the world of Control has for us and let's get straight into it. Welcome to the Achievement Grind. The game begins with Jessie walking into the Federal Bureau of Control. She is here accompanied with her brain friend Polaris, who seems to be some form of entity attached to her, and we're here to continue the search for our brother Dylan. We explore a little bit, find our first collectibles, and make our way through the isolated offices until we actually reach somebody. Artie, the janitor. He is an odd bloke admittedly, but he means well, and he says he's been expecting us, and that we must be here for the new assistant job. But no, we're not, so he points us on further, and we carry on. Just outside of Director Trench's office, we hear a bang and go to see that he has taken his life. Pretty intense. But our brain friend says that we need to pick up the gun immediately. When we do, things get weird. We are then told about the objects of power, regular harmless items that have paranormal energy within them. That is what this building is dedicated to as well, the finding and research of these powered items. And this gun is the first. Now, this will be the first object of power that we interact with, but every time we do, we're transported to a void of sorts called the astral plane, where we have to find the item, and when we do, it gives us a new power to work with. When we find the service weapon, we unlock choose or be chosen. 1 down, 66 more to go. Now, objects of power allow us to do new things, as I just said. The service weapon, for example, allows us to shoot things in the head. With the gun in hand and Trench's dead words ringing in our head, we are now, for some reason, the new director of the entire company. But hey, easy promotion, I guess. This gun immediately proves useful though, when we finally start finding the employees of the building. We fight our way through these enemies known as the Hiss, and once cleared we are able to use our powers to cleanse the area of infection and return it to its former glory. With the dangers lessened, we then rescue a team of people that emerge saying that the building is in full lockdown as this infection has hit everywhere. We finish talking to our new friend Emily, who clues us in on what she knows, which isn't really that much, and when done the chapter finishes and we unlock Welcome to the Oldest House. The next mission is to find another object of power, the hotline. This apparently will allow us to talk directly to something called the Board, a group of extremely powerful entities that live within the astral plane. On our adventure though, we find another object of power first that needs cleansing. Since we are able to do just that, we introduce ourselves to the floppy disk and get ready to steal all of its powers. The power of choice? Telekinesis. One of the most fundamental mechanics of this game, and a power I was very glad to finally get. Once grabbed, we also of course unlocked Paranormal Powerhouse. Making our way through the communications department, we find our first boss, Tomasi, the former head of communications and prime Hiss candidate. Now, he does pack a bit of a punch and has powers that we've not seen before, but we eventually get the upper hand and Tomasi scurries off before we can finish the fight. But that's fine though, we will meet up with him again later. Immediately after the fight, we have yet another achievement folks, as we find our 40th collectible. Not really difficult as they are everywhere, but for this we also unlock Strange Collection, and is the first of several collectible related trophies in the game. At last we find the hotline, and on the phone Trench then tells us that his manager team might know what's going on. Now, there are only 2 names that he gives that aren't missing or dead, so our next job is to find the strays and ask what they know. To find them, we have to explore the building further, but for completing chapter 2 we unlock the next achievement, Unknown Caller. At this point in the story, we now also have access to upgrades our guns and powers. So for unlocking an ability upgrade, we also unlock Para-Utilitarian, and for constructing our first weapon form, Shatter, we also unlock Astral Construction. Now, weapon forms allow you to change the firing pattern or style of your gun, from shotguns to snipers to spray and pray machines. This little gun is capable of a lot, but more on that later. On our travels, we once again bump into Artie, who says that we need to help him clean up the place. The first of several side missions in this game that we need to do for achievements. However, we have other things to do, like finding our next object of power. Finding this was a happy accident, and allows us to dash and evade, which again will actually be very handy later on, and not just because it unlocks us shifting positions either. Going through further, we start to realise how much of a head feck this game can actually be, and I was loving it. But we were so happy exploring that we got a couple more achievements on the way to our next goal. The next was for finding and releasing our 5th control point, which allows you to fast travel, upgrade and such like that, and also gives ritualistic thinking looking. Again though, there are a couple more achievements for cleansing more, so this is something that we'll be doing throughout. Next, when the Hiss come out of hiding, we quickly lob stuff at them until they aren't breathing anymore. For killing our 50th Hiss with our launch ability, we also unlock unstable matter. Carrying on further, again we find yet another object of power, this time a safe. Once picklocked and ours, we unlock the shield ability, which I'll tell you now, I didn't use anywhere near as much as I should have done, as it's a pretty decent power, but I'm an idiot. So we'll take our next achievement, Insular Telekinesis, and once again, carry on. Now there wasn't that much to do in this chapter other than turn the power back on in some of the departments. So once again we have a nice little natter with Emily, who is just the sweetest, and as you may expect, Directional Override unlocks next for finishing chapter 3. Now honestly folks, Control is a lot of fun, it really is, but there isn't that much to talk about in between achievements and the story, as it's just run from point A to point B, use your powers to kill everything in your way, and then do it again. So there isn't really much to discuss. Now that's also not a problem, as the game gets to highlight its strongest aspects by doing this. But just to say, if you think we're going through the achievements rather quickly, well, it's because we were, which is obvious when we then found our 80th collectible in total as well, and unlocked our next achievement, Record Keeper. Then a whopping 10 seconds later, we have our next as well. With launch, we decide to return to sender an enemy's grenade, and this also unlocks proper handling procedure. Wonderful. At this point already, the enemies were getting slightly beefier, and with new sets of armors and weapons and such like that. And even though I've been playing this game for only a few hours, I was very much getting sucked into this experience quite badly. We're still not done with achievements though yet folks, as on the path to finding Marshall, one of the names that Trench gave us, we clear our 10th control point in total, which also gives us another achievement. Now another small mechanic of the game are board countermeasures, small challenges where you have to kill specific enemies in specific places. Once done, you get mods and rewards for your character. Now most of them are quite easy, so it took no time to complete our 5th in total and unlock war games as well. Having almost reached Marshall, it's time for yet another object of power to have its essence nicked by yours truly. This X-ray machine thingy allows us to unlock Seize, which essentially lets us Shadow of Mordor the enemies into helping us, and of course also gives psychic occupation. Now earlier I mentioned that we have a couple of side missions to do for achievements later on. Well, the first is here. As I was exploring, meeting new people in new places, side stories just kept popping up, so I decided it would be best to go through them as I find them. And with the 5th in total complete, the importance of synergy was also ours as well. With that, it's finally time to meet Marshall, the head of the Bureau's operations. But she of course just moves us on to our next point, which is to find a very specific lab. And during the next big fight, we, as you may have come to expect by now, get another achievement as well. With the Seize ability, we've been putting it to work getting the Hiss to do our dirty work for us, and for taking over our 10th enemy in total, we unlock Cognitive Intruder. We eventually find the lab in question and even manage to turn the machines on. However, the prism inside explodes, so the next task is finding a replacement for it. And to get it, we need to head into the Black Rock Quarry. That, however, is another chapter down and another achievement ours with Old Boys Club. Whilst finding our way down to said quarry, we also get introduced to yet another side objective in the game, Executive Orders. Occasionally the board will give you a timed mission where you have to go to a certain part of the map and clear it of enemies. Nothing tricky at all, but you know damn well that for completing the first we unlock yet another achievement because this game just loves spitting them out at you. So once the first is ticked off, we unlock First on the Scene. Moments later we also get the last collectible related achievement that we need for the base game with Bureau Activist, for finding 120, which is much easier than you think, and you'll be amazed to know that the next also came only a few minutes later, as once we go on another Hiss killing rampage, we collect a total of 100,000 Source, which is something that enemies leave behind when they're dead. With 100,000 in our pocket, Paranatural Collection unlocked next. Finally, we make it to the Black Quarry, which is an amazing place but filled with some really tough enemies. However, since finding it, we can go back to Marshall to tell her the good news, and in doing so, she has some news for us. Dylan, our brother, is indeed in this facility. However, he is horrendously dangerous, and we cannot let him out of his containment or things will go very wrong. So what will we do? No idea, as for now, we finished the chapter gaining us Threshold. Now, through upgrading Jessie a whole bunch, we unlocked all of the slots needed for her personal mods, meaning we can make her much stronger now as the game continues, and so does unlocking achievements, as this also gives us career development. Wow, they really just chuck achievements at you constantly in this game, huh? Anyway, I reckon it'll be a long while before we get the next. We immediately unlock the next as we find yet another object of power. This time a very generous TV gives us the ability to levitate, another power that comes in handy so often during this game as well as gives us yet another achievement with Rising Thought. But that's not all folks, as we have arrived at our first optional side boss. Since we've been tackling things as they come up, we now have the chance to fight something called the Anchor. Now this was the first real boss fight of the run, and it was a ton of fun. It took us a couple of attempts to understand what we had to do here, but once we sussed it, it toppled pretty easily. With one last clock, it explodes and we get living archetypes. With this death and riches gained from said death, we now can fully upgrade the mod slots on one of our weapon types. Considering there's an achievement for it, we decide to proceed, upgrading grip to the best it can be and also unlocking non-standard issue in the process. Now this mission all revolves around us finding our brother, and once we get to his holding cell, we find out that not only he broke out, but he's delivered himself straight to Emily, who puts him into another container until they can find out what the hell is going on. But that is another chapter ended and another achievement unlocked with my brother's keeper. Now in the interest of saving time, we do quite a bit in between now and completing the next missions, collectibles, challenges and boss fights. So let's quickly go through them now. The next side mission that we had to do was us shutting down this terrifying fridge. I know, right? A true enemy. But within its astral plane, we find the true terrifying form of said fridge, an entity called the Former. Its ugly packs a punch, but dies very easily when you chuck a collection of rocks at its eye. When down, astral phenomena unlocks. From this, we're also able to unlock some upgrades for launch, and now can hold 3 pieces at once, which is honestly a fantastic upgrade. So we put it to use and continue to throw things at other things. Now for hitting 3 enemies with 3 separate bricks, we unlock yet another achievement with multiple applications, which is technically a DLC achievement, but sorry, we're getting them all anyway. Deciding our brother is somewhat important, we have a quick pit stop to see what he has to say for himself, and apparently he has a lot to say without really saying anything important other than knowing that Polaris is in our head, so more on Dylan later I suppose. Straight afterwards we had some more side missions to complete, and in doing them we finished the 10th in total, which gained us yet another precious unlock with interdimensional cooperation. Jesus Christ, that's a long name. But that doesn't stop us either, as we have yet another boss fight. Now what poor, unfortunate fool is going to be unlucky enough to face Jessie? Well, Jessie, actually, or is her, I guess, as this is a mirrored version of her. She indeed hits hard, but we know what we're doing more, I guess, as death comes for her. Or me, as well. It doesn't matter, it's really confusing. My point is, we unlocked Altered Manifest, this achievement. We unlocked this achievement. With that win, we were able to spend more points on upgrading our powers, and in fact, we spent 50 points in total for Expert Para-Utilitarian. But that's not all for abilities, as for another achievement, we need to spend 100 points in total, and that gets grindy. But more on that later. During the story, we've been tracking down what has caused the hiss to leak into the building, and after many missions and many side quests, we have figured it out. Of course, it's another object of power, the slide projector, which when turned on activates gateways between other dimensions, and it is causing a right fuss. So we need to pull the plug, literally. Finding this out also pops the achievement for chapter 7, and for some reason I don't have the footage anymore. Really not ideal, I'm very sorry, but ping! Oh look, there it is! During the next chapter, more achievements were of course unlocked as well. The first is the final one for cleansing control points, 25 in total, and once done, unlock discerning the pattern, followed very rapidly by our 5th Bureau alert fix, which gives us crisis management. Tackling more side missions is next. As for completing the 15th in total, we also unlock the final side mission related achievement with FBC Crisis Solution Task Force, and the final achievement for now is just for being an unstoppable killing machine, as finally we are the sole reason 1000 Hiss are no longer with us. And honestly, this game seems to be super proud of us for completing this mammoth task, as when we unlocked this achievement, it did it twice for me, but I'll only count it once, I guess. Now for chapter 8, we had to get in touch with an old janitorial friend of ours. It takes some time to find him since he's gone on holiday, but alas, he returns to ask us the most important question that I have ever been asked.
Did you miss me? Did you have peace in your sock?
Okay, wasn't guessing that, but by an unbelievable stroke of luck, I actually did. For finding Artie, that actually completes chapter 8, and thus finished Tango Unlocks. Folks, we're actually really close to the ending now, so let's just crack on with the campaign, get it finished, and then we can clean up the base game before moving on to the first DLC with the Foundation. Now, we needed Artie's help getting through a section of the game called the Ashtray Maze, and honestly, without question, one of the highlights of the game. Heavy metal blasting, enemies dying, some of the coolest levels design that I've had the pleasure of going through in a long while. It is truly an experience, this section, and solidifies everything great about the game. But like all good things, it comes to an end. We realise that the slide projector isn't where it should be, so the search for it continues more. But we do find something else. Polaris. Within a Hedron chamber in the facility is an ball. When we reach said ball, it crumbles into pieces after being attacked by the Hiss. And for the first time, the Hiss are now able to get into Jesse's brain, as Polaris isn't there to stop them now. So that's what the Hiss do and immediately take over. Folks, there we go. That's the story complete, as you can tell by the credits and... Wait, what the smeg? With a flash, we awake a regular admin working for the Bureau. Obviously, something isn't right here, as we must complete mundane tasks. Now, we find out that this, of course, isn't happening, and it's Jesse trying to find Polaris inside her mind, with the Hiss also trying to take control like it did over Trench, who we also find out is the one who turned the projector on. We eventually outclass the Hiss and take control of our brain again. When we do, Dr. Darling finally gets in touch, the master of understanding these objects, and who has been missing from the start of the game. He tells us to go to his office and that we are officially in the endgame now. For completing Chapter 9, we unlock Polaris, and let's get this game done. Thankfully and eventually, we were able to find Polaris. Even though the Hedron is dead, she lives on in our mind, and we're able to cleanse the Hiss from our grey matter. With the end in sight and us back at full power, it is time to end this. For Dylan, and well, for everyone really. We head through one of the trippiest and coolest sections of the game yet as we race to the projector. And Dylan, who seems to have found it as well, having broken out of his containment again. Dylan decided to side with the Hiss after thinking that we abandoned him. So let's get our brother back. Jesse and Polaris both tried to rid Dylan's brain of the Hiss, and it somewhat works. Unfortunately, he's in a coma now, and we don't find out what happens to him, but at least he's safe. The portal is closed and the slide projector has been switched off, so things can slowly reset to how they once was. The game ends with Jesse accepting her role as the director of the FBC, and we unlock Take Control. But we're not done in the slightest yet, folks, as we still have achievements to clean in the base game before heading to the 2 small DLCs, so let's crack on. And as you would imagine, we're going to go through these rather quickly. The next achievement after beating the campaign we get is for facing another side boss. Now, there seems to be some form of Last of Us infection going throughout the facility, and we've tracked the source down to this plant. After we rid it of photosynthesis rather instantly, we get aggressive growth. For another ability related achievement, we need to kill 10 hits with a shield burst, a move I wasn't really aware that existed, so we went through them all, and only moments later unlocked volatile debris. Now, remember when I said at the start that we would be seeing Tomasi again? Well, the time is now, and unlike the fight before, he is actually incredibly tough in part 2. Not so much for Tomasi himself, but the hordes of tough Hiss that back him up. It took some time to learn some good strats for damage, and we did well enough to finally put him down, beating the final and hardest side boss in the game for giving us Head of Communications. Only 2 more achievements left, and both were a bit of a grind. The next is for completing 25 board countermeasures, so to make the grind less, we kept recycling until we had 3 tasks in the same area, which really helped us clean this up as quickly as possible. Once done, we unlocked Astral Tactician, and the final achievement for now is for spending 100 ability points in total, and this means we need to do pretty much everything in the game for us to earn enough. So the grind begun. It took a couple of hours of cleanup, finding hidden locations, skins and such, but we eventually get there. With the 100 ability points spent, we unlock the final base game achievement with Master Para Utilitarian. I need to stop saying that word. With the base game complete, it is time to trek into the first short DLC. For the Foundation, we are summoned to, well, the Foundation, as there is a new Hiss threat that could destroy the Bureau, and we can't be having that, so we head straight there. After briefly going through the new area, we find the first and most important place of interest for the DLC, the Nail. When we touch it, we are introduced to the new abilities of this pack. We now are faced with a choice. On one side, we can now summon and create bridges, or on the other, it will allow our gun to destroy certain crystals. Both are fine, but creation sounds good, so we pick that as our next power and carry on. Now, we are actually in here to find Marshall, as we keep seeing signs of her, but the next thing that we find is another object of power, and this one takes us on an insane ride. It's a weird section for a game like this, but another great change of pace. It lasts a little bit longer than you'd expect, and it's quite tricky to complete as well, but like any challenge, we smash it and our reward is star performance. So for now, the objective is to restore the Nail by finding keys within the astral plane and fixing them, essentially. Other than that, honestly, there isn't really much to discuss as the DLCs are short. So whilst we go go find the 4 keys and fix them accordingly, let's go through the achievements that we got. The next was for creating or destroying 100 of these crystal formations. Now at this point we'd also unlocked the other choice ability that we could get earlier, so we could now create and destroy for easy farming. Once 100 had been dealt with, we got Make Unmake. The one after that was for killing 50 hiss sharpened enemies, a new type of foe introduced the DLC that can pack some damage. However, they are just as easy to take out as all the rest. So it didn't take us long for us to collect all 50 heads and unlock Hostile Work Environment. It was actually at this time that I realised that I'd reached the final boss of the DLC, having fixed the nail to its fullest. And unfortunately, the final boss is Marshall. She got infected by the hiss and is now trying to destroy the nail. If she succeeds, let's just say everything will go wrong. The Marshall fight, however, I have to say, was quite fun. She has powers that can kick ass and she is a foe to be intimidated by. But we soon realise her weakness, pelting shit at her. She was weirdly affected by large chunks of rock hitting her jaw, so we repeated that process until she was dead. And with her death, the nail is safe and the first DLC is over. It only took a couple of hours to get through, however we're not done 100% as we have the rest of the achievements tied to this pack. Next, I wanted one of the hilariously annoying ones out of the way with. In this DLC and as director, occasionally you can summon rangers to help you in the fight. We needed these rangers to kill 5 enemies, which is hilariously annoying as either the enemies don't spawn when the rangers do, or the rangers don't do anything like pathetic morons. After about an hour, I did find a decent spot and we went through all 5. Certainly painful, but eventually doable for supportive staff. The next was simple, thankfully. We just have to find a very special bathroom in the DLC that takes us to a very weird small part of the astral plane, found only moments later for astral plumbing. Next, we finished the last couple of side missions that the DLC had for us, included getting keycards for Emily and that sort of thing. There weren't too many, so not long after the toilet break, we also got a strong foundation. And the next achievement absolutely sucked. We have to gather all of the Maneki Nekos that are in the DLC, but oh my lord, finding these little bastards is literally impossible without a guide, as they are the most hidden thing a thing has ever been hidden. Like, Christ, finding where all of these were and completing the puzzles to get to them was such a pain, and thankfully the reward was as perfect as you could imagine. Cat ears, the perfect addition to our director's head. Oh, and we also unlock one of us, blah 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 blah. But did you see what's on our head? Anyway, the last 2 foundation achievements were for finding all of the collectibles and hidden locations. Both took an hour and were easy enough for niche position and subterranean research. Alright, with that, 1 down and 1 more to go. Now, unfortunately, this is where the game loses me a little bit. It's not the game's fault, but the DLC is essentially about a problem that Alan Wake creates in somewhere called the Dark Place, and the effects of what he does gives Jessie the problems that she faces in this DLC. And I've never played Alan Wake, the only thing that I know about him is that he's a writer, so I don't think I can really explain the DLC story well, other than essentially there is a big beast that we need to kill. There is also another unfortunate note from me that I have to mention. This DLC sucks. For 80% of it, you fight through the dark to find Dr. Hartman, again and again and again. Once you find him, you make the area bright and he scuttles off to the next place. The entire DLC is like this, and it is such a slog, but let's get into it. Back in the Bureau proper now, we of course go through all of the hordes of hiss that you've come to expect. That is until we meet a rather new impressive creature that has taken over Dr. Hartman. Now, he looks amazing, however it just takes a little light bulb or two to banish him, as I've already said. Oh, and if you go into the darkness whilst facing him, he will rip you apart pretty easily. He is a tank for sure, and I think is one of the reasons why he was a little bit underwhelming. But for shining a bit of light on the situation for the first time and scaring him away, we unlock the first achievement, Familiar Methodologies. Folks, when I said that this is the DLC, I really meant it. Nothing else happens other than the briefest of cutscenes with Alan talking to Alan. No idea. But behold, there is a new power we have for the shield. Now, thanks to the DLC, which allows us to rush enemies and do damage with a wall in front of us, basically. It doesn't do the most damage really, and we need to kill 100 enemies with this. So, away we go, hammering away at them like they owed us money. It took us a little while, but we soon reached the 100 dead with this ability. However, the achievement pop didn't go to plan. It still counts, so that's rush job hours as well. Another new addition to the DLC is a new gun form, Sage, which allows you to stick bombs to objects and people, detonating them for some decent damage. As you may expect, with a new toy comes another couple of achievements, and the first is simple. Stick a bomb to an item, lob it at the enemy, easily done for work smarter, not harder. Seconds later, we also found 80% of the total collectibles in the DLC, and with that unlocked another with in-depth investigation. And folks, we're already at the final boss, which is Dr. Hartman. Now, I promise you've missed nothing. We have done the same thing with this bloke I think 4 or 5 times now, so finally and thankfully it's time to put him down. Now the final fight is actually a lot of fun, and you have to be really careful about lights, damage and spacing, and things can go wrong quick. And this was really bittersweet, as the final boss was great. It was just a shame that there was hardly any substance leading up to this fight, and as all things that stand in my way of achievements, we kill him. The lights get too much for this chap and he explodes like those creatures from Scooby-Doo. That's the DLC. It ends with the teaser that Alan Wake 2 is coming, which, sure, fine I guess. Very disappointing DLC to me considering how fun the Foundation was, but with it complete we only have a couple more achievements before it's time to end. And fortunately for you folks, one of the achievements we had was the most tedious yet. Oh, and for beating the DLC and killing Hartman, we also unlocked the third thing. First upon cleanup was killing 50 enemies with the Surge variant of our gun. Easily farmed for the next 20 minutes as we didn't have many left to go, and that unlocked us Surge Protector. After that was quite a fun one, as within this DLC are 2 old school arcade machines that send us to challenge rooms for essentially Outlive the Horde game modes. This game mode comes in clutch very soon, but for now we just go through the waves, win easily and take home workplace recreation for beating one of them, followed again by finding 80% of the hidden locations within the DLC, unlocking us Chief Investigator as well. With all of that work we had just done, we had materials upon materials, so with that we could fully upgrade the Surge part of our gun as well, which dons us yet another achievement with Surge of Power. The next achievement was the most painful and an absolute slog. Vending Spree is for destroying 80% of possessed vending machines that you can find amongst the DLC. This turns out to be about 5 or 6 vending machines in total. Now they are actually RNG spawned, and you have to find them by shooting the machines until one of them freaks out. So we got to work and soon found out a really good path that took me through about 10 machines within a very short amount of time. So I got to work and kept my fingers crossed that the RNG gods were here for me, and 5 hours later, we did not have a single one. 5 solid continuous hours of walking the same route hoping for them to show, but not a single one did. That's when I found out that the DLC can glitch and prevent any from spawning. So I had to start the entire DLC again and hope by getting to this point we corrected the problem and that they would spawn in. So nervously we got to work. We found and killed every single one in 15 minutes. An absolute joke that boiled my blood. However, we still did it unlocking Vending Spree. The final achievement is here folks, and it's another simple one, to kill 25 airborne rangers. Another new enemy for the DLC, but there was a problem. They are fairly rare. But that's where the arcade machines come back into play, as in the Horde mode tons of them spawn, and with another go we were able to clean up the last few that we needed, also unlocking Elevated Mind. And that is the final achievement of the DLC as well as the entire game. Control is done, and other than the last DLC it was a fantastic game to grind. However, let's get straight into the stats, as for now, the grind is over. Now, as I said, Control is a phenomenal game, and a true treat to go through. The premise is mysterious, and you can't help but get invested in the story as you fight great enemies in hilariously fun ways, whilst also getting a great story, greater music, and the greatest cinematography I think I've ever seen in a game. Control is absolutely breathtakingly stunning, but it also does have some flaws for me. The first is the variety of enemies in the gameplay. The game is very fun, don't get me wrong, but it is essentially the same from start to finish in the way that you play. You just get stronger throughout, which is fine. But towards the end of the game, I was wanting something a little more to mix it up slightly. The Ore DLC absolutely stunk. It tried to include a couple of new mechanics like the light and dark situations, but it just really didn't hold up to me. The Foundation though was a ton of fun, and I'm sure you'll enjoy Ore a lot more than I did, as I don't know any lore or context for Alan Wake, and which is another reason why it's on me, not on the devs, so I won't be taking any points away or anything for it. In short, play Control. That's it. It's truly a fantastic experience, and a style of game I don't think I have ever played before or since. However, let's get to the stats. For Control, it took us 27.3 hours to grind all 67 achievements. My rating for the game is going to be an extremely well-deserved 8.5 out of 10. This is truly an experience in gaming that I don't think I've really had before, and with a couple of tweaks to a couple of particular things, it could have honestly been a masterpiece, which is why I cannot wait to find out more news on Control 2, so hopefully that'll eventually be coming as well. For the difficulty of the achievements though, I will say that it is going to be a 2.5 out of 10. It took under 30 hours to do with the entire game and both DLCs, and other than a couple of tricky boss fights and a couple of really grinding achievements, nobody should really struggle with this whatsoever, and it should be achievable by pretty much all. And I think it comes as a surprise to nobody when I give the hardest achievement to the vending machine one, because yeah, that one really broke me. It was just a mixture of glitches, bad luck, and just horridness. But hopefully you folks won't have as much trouble with that one as I did. But that is it from me today, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you want me to cover more of the Remedy titles, please let me know down in the comments below. I am more than willing. It depends if you lot do, because I am quite curious about Alan Wake now, I can't lie. But whilst you're down there, don't forget to like and subscribe for more achievement grinds as well. I've got some really good videos lined up, folks, that I cannot wait to show you. And if you do want to see it live as well, feel free to swing on over to the Twitch where we do the achievement grinds. It would be lovely to have you watching my suffering, and it genuinely helps having an audience for my absolute misery. But folks, that is it from me today. I have already wittered on for far too long, so again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future grind, and until then, take care everybody. Bye bye for now.